Hi guys, this is a video here. I'm just going to really quickly go over for you guys what you can expect to see in Heart of the Swarm if you're a Zerg. What's different from Wings of Liberty. With the most recent balance patch, it might be the biggest balance patch in the history of StarCraft 2, we're starting to get a real good idea of what we're going to get out of Heart of the Swarm. There's still a few months left. It's still time for it to change a little bit and for things to be slightly different, but by and large, this is what we're actually going to see out of the game. And so I want to really just show you really quickly what kind of things can you expect as a Zerg. All right? Okay. First thing, Mutalisks move slightly more quickly. It's hard without having a point of reference to see the original speed of movement in Wings of Liberty, but if you are playing Zerg and you're used to Mutalisks, you might say, gee, these things are moving slightly more quickly. So Mutalisks move slightly more quickly. Speaking of speed, Hydralisks, we all know that what they do is they on creep move quickly, but if you move them off of creep, they slow down quite a bit and they become a lot less useful. Well, for I just messed up the thing. Oh well. For Zerg, you can get this upgrade, Muscular Augments, and once you have Muscular Augments, let me get all of these guys that aren't Hydralisks out of the way. When you get your Muscular Augments, what you're going to see is that your Hydralisks, which now move speedily on creep, also are going to move just as speedily off of creep. There isn't really any noticeable decrease in speed getting off of creep. Still a little bit more speedy on creep, but their movement speed off of creep is certainly quite a bit better. So these Hydralisks are going to be a lot more useful to you. What else are you going to see as a Zerg? Well, what you're going to see is, I didn't want to do that. What you're going to see is that the Infestor has been changed. The Infestor was very strong in Wings of Liberty. It's been considered by a lot of pros and by a lot of just everyday players to be a little bit overpowered. Well, the Infestor has been changed in Wings of Liberty so that in a couple of ways. For one thing, the infested Terran eggs are a little bit weaker, so now they can die more easily to storm and siege tanks. So that the eggs will be dying more quickly and less infested Terrans will ultimately be hatching into life and doing damage. The other thing that you're going to be able to see is that fungal growth is now a projectile. See that little ball go over there? So you can dodge that. Now what I have found, and now it's only testing it when I'm trying to activate both, so it's hard for me to say, but is that you really have to kind of anticipate to dodge. If you anticipate, you can dodge. If you don't anticipate, and if you wait until you see the ball coming, what I found is that it's really too late. I missed it altogether there. And now these Marines, they're not actually going to die. Let me try one more time to dodge without anticipating. And I couldn't do it. So as you can see, maybe it's possible, but it's going to take an incredible amount of just very, very good micro for people to do it. So some of the pros might be able to pull it off, but I'm not sure if it's going to be that significant. Another really cool thing you're going to see in Heart of the Swarm is you are going to see the swarm hosts. Swarm hosts are like burrowed brood lords. They're really strong. You move them away, you burrow them, and then you set the rally point. And they have a very long rally, and they swarm these locusts. And as you can see, these locusts are going to come in, and they do quite a bit of damage. They're going to really start to just take out these siege tanks very, very quickly, as you can see. Even if we bring a couple of siege tanks down and siege them up, what you're going to see is that these locusts are going to get in there and they're going to actually start to very slowly, little by little, they're going to whittle down the siege tanks and they're going to start to cut that number down. And so it's going to be a lot harder for the Terran, or there's uses against Protoss too, of course. I'm just giving one example to survive. Look at how meaty these things are. They get through all that siege fire, and they're able to take out all the siege tanks. So that's actually really, really, really quite strong. I think that perhaps the biggest what I think is right now the most powerful unit in the game of these things, the Vipers. Now, what do the Vipers do? Well, the Vipers actually have a couple of abilities. One, let's say that we use some energy. Well, I'll show you that in a minute. The Vipers, the first ability they have is you have this entrenched Terran. He's all sieged up. Well, the Vipers, so you have a bunch of Zerglings here and Banelings and things. Of course, it's hard to approach this army of the Terran, right? Well, what the Vipers can do is you can come in and you can do abduct on units like these siege tanks. And you pull the siege tanks over here, and now they're exposed, and you could have your Zerglings right here waiting to run in and to kill them. And so that's really, really, really quite strong. So you have this army here. Let me actually unsiege these just to make this demonstration simpler, and I'll pack everything up. So now another thing, see that this Viper has less energy because I just used some abducts. You can use this ability called Consume, where you take health slowly away from friendly buildings, and as you can see, it's refilling the energy bar of that Viper. And so you're going to use this when you're trying to defend your base and you need to recharge your Viper's energy very quickly. Now you have to be careful because he sucked a lot of health away from that hatchery, but it did recharge the energy on the Vipers. The other ability that these Vipers have is this ability called Blinding Cloud. This is basically the Defiler from Brood War, if anybody's familiar with that. You come in and you put the Blinding Cloud on the enemy, and then anything that remains in that region cannot fire for 14 seconds. You can micro out of it, and then you can fire from outside of there, but anything within this range has only melee range for the entire length of that time. In other words, things like Zealots might still be able to attack, but things like Marines, basically every Terran unit, and things like, Roaches and Stalkers and things like that will not be able to fire. And so, what can you do with this? Well, look at this paltry little army of like 5 Hydralisks, okay? 5 Hydralisks, if they walk into that, they're going to get owned. Well, what I'm going to do is put I'm going to put the Blinding Cloud onto, you can abduct friendly units, by the way, as you just saw, which is really useful for saving things like Broodlords when they're in trouble or something like that. But I'm going to go ahead and put Blinding Cloud on this army, and then I'm going to come in and attack with these Hydralisks. Like, there's something wrong with my control right now, but as you can see, the Hydralisks are able to move in, and they're able to take out a siege tank, and they're going to take out another siege tank, perhaps, and these units couldn't do anything in that time. So if I go back and add in, let me just delete everything except for the Vipers. Oh, I deleted the Vipers by mistake. I'll just add more Vipers in. I'm going to add in a bunch of speed Zerglings, and I'm going to add in some Vipers. Give Zerg speed. Now, obviously, if we as a Zerg go ahead and siege up this position, right, and we send these Zerglings in, they're going to get absolutely owned. This is going to be absurd. They didn't even do a single hit point of damage to that army. It's just not even remotely good. But if instead we take these Zerglings and we take these Vipers and we put the Blinding Cloud on this entire area. Now, obviously, a real Terran's going to micro against this kind of thing, but you get the point. So we put the Blinding Cloud on everything, and we sent these Zerglings in, and look at how much more effective they are. The Marines came out and microed, and so it's not going to be nearly as effective, but all the Marines died, right? And if I go ahead and reset this just to demonstrate how effective it can be, again, think of how strong that army of the Terran was against the Zerglings in the original case. And now I'm going to put these things on hold position so they don't micro, just for the sake of demonstrating how strong this can be against against Terrans when Zergs use it well. We'll put the Blinding Cloud on it, and then we'll come in, and now that these Marines aren't going to micro, look at this. you can see the amount of damage that these Zerglings are able to do, and then we could probably even recast it on some of these areas, and allow the Zerglings to do even more. And look at how drastically different this is from that first one, where those Zerglings all got absolutely destroyed. They're doing an enormous amount of damage. In fact, they're going to absolutely crush this Terran army. Again, Terrans are going to micro, but also, good Terrans will micro, but also good Zergs will know how to use this very effectively. They'll know how many of these things they need. They'll know where to put those blinding clouds so that that is not a problem. They'll also know, especially, I think, how to exploit the use of this unit against mech. Terran mech, I think, is going to be a lot weaker in Heart of the Swarm, potentially, until Terrans really figure out how to deal with these things. So that's really it for Zerg. The one other thing to note is that the Ultralisk has been given an upgrade so that it does a flat 35 damage to all ground units. It no longer has a lesser attack and then bonus damage against armored. It just flat out does its damage to everything. So that's the Zerg units for Heart of the Swarm as we see them right now. And these haven't changed a whole lot at all throughout the entire beta. So I think we can be pretty confident that this is pretty much what we're going to see. So some really strong options. I hope that it works out well for you guys. Have fun.